Before we start this episode, I want to share a super exciting offer with you. From now until the end of January 2026, you can get 26% off the cost of a full year in Boss Your Socials Club. There are 3 tiers to choose from depending on the level of support you want, and every tier gives you access to a supportive community, accountability, and all the tools, templates, and strategies that you need to market your business on social media, show up, and actually grow your business without the overwhelm. So if you're ready to finally prioritise your socials, and if you're ready to make a real difference in your business, Boss Your Socials Club is here, and now is the best time to join. To grab your discount, head to www.beheardsocials.com/kickstart. Choose the annual option for your preferred tier, tap on Have a Coupon at checkout, and enter the code KICKSTART. That's KICKSTART. Let's kickstart your new year, get your socials working for you, and make 2026 your easiest, most organised year yet. In the meantime, though, let's get back to the episode that you came for. In today's episode, I am so excited to be talking to the amazing Suzy Reading, a chartered psychologist and one of the UK's leading experts in self-care and self-advocacy. We dive into some big, important topics, including the power of reframing selfishness and dismantling the pressures of what it means to be a good woman. Suzy also shares some really practical and doable tips for integrating self-care into everyday life, including techniques like breathwork, movement, and simple practices to help regulate your emotions. We also explore her 7 steps to being selfish, and these are steps that are designed to help you prioritise your needs, advocate for yourself, and feel comfortable taking up space without the guilt. So if you're ready to stop feeling like a bad person for putting yourself first, if you need some boundaries in place, or you want to start practicing self-care that actually works, then this episode is for you. But before we dive in, if you're new here, hi, I'm your host, Becky McAvoy. I'm a multi-award-winning social media marketer and the dreamer behind Be Heard Socials and the Boss Your Socials Club. I created this podcast to help women like you simplify your life and grow a business on your terms without the overwhelm. So if you're ready for some no BS advice, practical tips, and honest chats that make social media, business, and life feel lighter and more doable, you are in exactly the right place. Whilst you're here, can I please ask you a tiny favour? If you're enjoying the show, it would mean the world to me if you could follow the podcast and leave a quick review. It genuinely helps more women discover the show, because the more engagement it has, the more the platforms recommend it to people who need this kind of support. It only takes a moment, but it makes such a massive difference. So thank you so very much in advance. And now let's get started with this week's episode. Hi, Suzy. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Becky. This is fun.
I am so excited for today's conversation because I have followed you on Instagram for a very long time and have loved all of your content. But I reached out to you after seeing you do a keynote at the wonderful Nikki's Wilder live event in October, which feels like a lifetime ago now.
It does.
But it was, and I absolutely loved your keynote. Like, I took loads of great things away from it, and I just wanted to speak to you more. And then we've just been chatting before we started recording about how I've been listening to your new book, How to Be Selfish. And yeah, I'm just really excited about the conversation because so much of what you speak about resonates with me and is also a lot of what I talk about a lot.
Thank you so much for having me. And I tell you what, we need a chorus of voices on these themes of not-enoughness and this guilt that we're literally like marinating in, aren't we, Becky? Yeah?
100%. And I feel like as I was listening to the book, I was like, oh, I feel like I've been on quite a journey, and I speak a lot about this publicly in my own stuff around, I feel like I've actually got to a pretty good place where I am quite selfish. But as I was listening to the book, I was like, this is the book I needed like 6 or 7 years ago, because I think it would have helped me do it with a lot less guilt and a lot less struggle. And there's just so much, and I'm very much about systems and structure, like structure behind it. So yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of good stuff that people that listen to this podcast will take from it. However, before we get into any of that, do you want to tell us a little bit about your story and your business and sort of what led you to be where you are today?
Oh, I'd love to. So for anyone that's still trying to make sense of their career, I hope that this fabulously wild, all of these nonsensical twists and turns of my career will help you make sense of yours. So originally I trained as a psychologist. I did a master's degree in organisational psych. Then I came to the UK and there were parts of my degree that weren't recognised. And having just done 6 years at uni, the last thing I wanted to do was any bridging courses or anything like that. And I didn't plan on being here for a long time. So I fell back on my part-time job, which was working as a personal trainer. And what I didn't realize that Australian PTs are held in really high regard in this country. So what was meant to be like a 2-month holiday turned into 7 years. And at the time, I also did yoga teacher training qualifications. And I used to joke that my clients were getting therapy by stealth, and they were. But I was also earning my stripes as a human being. And it wasn't until I moved back to Australia and where the birth of my first child collided with the terminal illness of my father that really led me to reclaiming my psychological practice. So I now work as a psychologist. I specialize in stress, loss, and change, in the formulation of sustainable, healthy habits, which you can see makes sense of all these different modalities. I love drawing together the psychology with the movement, with the yoga, the breathing, the visualizations, all of the relaxation stuff into this toolkit. And I guess what I'm most passionate about is I'm known for self-care, which is the thing that makes sense of those different toolkits. But I want to broaden it now, Becky. I don't want this to be just about how we can take better care of ourselves. I want the conversation to move on to how we can advocate for ourselves so that we can receive love and support, because that's so needed, isn't it?
Yeah, and I absolutely love all of that, partly because I love asking this question on the podcast, because you starting off by saying, I was a personal trainer. Like, aren't we incredible? We do so many things. And it all leads us, down sort of a path of getting there that you'd never maybe envisaged in the first place. What is it that led you to, because obviously you've written a few books now. Is there anything, is this book one you've always wanted to write, or has it come from, what you've learned over time and where you've wanted to go with it?
Okay. So there are a number of different reasons why How to Be Selfish needed to come into existence. This is actually number 10. This is book number 10. The reason why it was needed is that I've written 9 other titles on how we can nourish ourselves. And we're nodding in agreement. We're saying, yep. Some of us are getting really skilled at it, right? Some of us are still feeling like it's not okay. So I needed to write a book that would break down these barriers of why we feel we are undeserving of our own attention or nourishment or support from others. But also for those that are, really doing a great job of looking after themselves and they're still feeling frazzled and fried and fed up. The reason is self-care alone is not enough. But still we feel this fundamental aversion to being transparent with others, to expressing our needs or giving voice to our feelings, because there are so many beliefs that scupper our feeling of comfort with being honest and open with others and receiving love and support. So there needed to be a huge discussion of why we're so phobic of being seen as selfish, why we revere selflessness and hold on to it with white knuckles, and what we can do to create some shifts in our beliefs so that we can all receive, because this is what we need, not just for our own health, but we actually need it for the health of our relationships.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that reframing selfish, and that's what the book does, isn't it? It reframes the word selfish into something positive. Like we have this view that it's a negative thing. If we're called selfish, it's an insult. But actually reframing it into that positive thing, I just think it's going to be so powerful. And like I said, I wish I'd had that sort of 6 or 7 years ago, because I think it's a journey I've been on, but it's been a very long, winding journey. But the other thing that you do in your book so powerfully is break down what it means to be, well, I suppose a good person, but in the book you talk about a good woman and a nice woman and all that kind of stuff. And again, I think that's going to be really, really powerful, because there's so much narrative around that. And I think back to my own journey with it. And I remember sitting in a coaching session, we were talking about limiting beliefs. And I was talking about, basically, the very long story short is I came out and said, I just don't think I'm a good person. And I completely broke down about it. And I mean, lots had gone on, which I've spoken about on the podcast before. And I remember being asked like why I didn't think I was a good person. When I look back at that answer now and thinking back to it as I was listening to your book, all of it was seeped in this narrative of what other people thought of me or what other people expected of me or all this different stuff. So yeah, do you want to talk a little bit about what you view a good woman as, or what you want to change the narrative to be, and how you talk about that in the book?
Okay. I invite everyone to come to their own definition of what it means to be a good human being. What I do want to hold up to the light are these common threads of what we've been led to believe. So I think most women would nod in agreement when we say we mustn't be selfish, we must be selfless, we must tend to the needs of others for ourselves. For us to be okay, we need everyone around us to be okay, because we've been taught that everyone else's emotions are our responsibility. There are some other more modern themes other than gender conditioning. I think we've been led to believe that we must be self-reliant and we've got to be resilient. But the issue there I have is, what does it take to be resilient? For us to be resilient, we actually need the love and support of other people, so we can't be only self-reliant. But also we're not allowed to be selfish. So how can we do all of the things that we know that we need to be resilient, such as, and this is where I can say with all of my professional hats on, right? You need movement, you need sleep, you need rest, you need relaxation, you need good nutrition, hydration, but you're not allowed to do any of those things because you're meant to be selfless. So can we hold all of these ridiculous nonsenses up to the light and say, I give myself permission to fail at what's humanly impossible. I can't keep all the people happy all the time. I can't work like I'm not a parent. I can't parent like I don't work. This is just, it's not doable. And I would love for people to say, do you know what? Let's dispense with trying to be the good human. Let's just allow ourselves to be human.
Yeah, and I love that. I really love that, because that's ultimately it, isn't it? We're human and we're flawed and we're multifaceted in what we feel and believe. And actually you speak a lot about that in the book as well, don't you? Of like, I really love the chapter on, I can't remember exactly how it was worded, but basically feeling your feelings, and that no feeling is a bad feeling.
Yeah.
And that no emotion is a bad emotion. So you talk a lot in there about anger as well. And again, I think that's I can struggle quite a lot of anxiety, and a lot of my anxiety comes out quite ragey. And I've been on a real journey with that this year, with the age that I am and hormones and all of that kind of stuff. But
Hello, perimenopause.
Yeah, all of the joys. But so much of I have found, like, I can get quite ragey, and there was so much shame seeped in that, because it's not, a perceived nice way to behave. And I really love in the book, and you saying just now about being human, it's like, actually everything is okay. And it's learning how you deal with that. And, it's not okay to be a horrible person to other people because of that, but it's learning your own self-acceptance first, I guess. And that comes with everything that you teach and say.
It does indeed. And you're absolutely right. There is so much cultural messaging around, I think, even the fact that we've been reared to conceptualize emotions as either good or bad. Now, quite often people will then stretch that to saying, well, I'm bad for having this bad feeling, right? So we really do need to clarify what emotional health is. And we just need tools and practices to support us in healthy emotional expression. But no emotion is off limits, and you're not bad for feeling anything. We do need to learn how to express our emotions in ways that don't do harm to ourselves and to others.
When you talk about sort of being selfish and things like that, and I imagine a lot of the people who listen to this podcast are women, and a lot of them are mums. And I imagine that's probably the same with a lot of the people that you work with, because I think that adds a whole new layer to it, doesn't it, when you've got children, because you need to, there's lots of situations where you do need to put them first, because you need to
100%
do things. Is there any practical tips that you'd give someone who is, whether they have children or not actually, but perhaps if they do as well, that is sort of starting out on this journey, and the very idea of being selfish or putting themselves first just blows their mind, or just completely inconceivable? Is there any sort of practical starting points?
Absolutely. So the starting point here is, what we're talking about is how to be self-ish. Yeah, this is how to heal our relationship with self. This is how we can come home to self, know self, accept self, trust self, and then feel safe and confident to be able to represent ourselves so that other people can understand us and be there for us. This is not how to be more selfish for people who are already skilled in advocating for themselves. And this has nothing to do with traditional conceptualizations of selfishness, which is, let's spell it out. If you're selfish in the real sense of the word, you would be promoting self above all others, overemphasis on your own needs, only considering yourself, potentially taking advantage of other people. That is not what this is about. Yeah. I want everyone to keep being that beautiful, giant-hearted, loving, caring, nurturing human being, but I want them to also allow themselves to extend those same qualities to themselves, but to receive that from other people. So we can let our heckles go down. This is not about being a selfish asshole. I'm not suggesting that for a minute, but it is about starting to live like we matter to. And that is okay. There's nothing wrong with that. This is about self-honoring and self-advocacy so that other people can tend to us as well. And we deserve that same love and care that we so generously extend to everybody else.
And I suppose it's changing your view of it a little bit, isn't it? One of the really powerful things for me when I was doing things was the realization, which I laugh because it's kind of obvious now, but that taking care of myself is part of taking care of my kids and my family, and taking care of myself is part of taking care of my business. Like, it's actually
Yes.
a function
You
of,
cannot separate them.
yeah, 100%. And I talk now about one of my favorite things to say, and I say it a little bit jokey, but there's a lot of truth in it. I say to my husband, the most important person in this house to be happy and healthy is me, because if I am happy and healthy, everyone else is happy and healthy. And obviously I don't mean that in like none of you matter, but
No.
it is that putting yourself first, isn't it? And I find that if I am happy and healthy, well, I can deal with the difficult things more that are challenging in parenting or running a business or whatever. But also generally, everybody else is happy and healthy because I generally do the things that facilitate that. Whereas if I'm not, that stuff doesn't happen.
Absolutely. Let's hold up to the light what happens when we consistently aim to be that selfless human being, that selfless mum that we aspire to be. I don't know about you, Becky, but if I continually deny my own needs, if I continually silence myself, if I continually abandon self, I'm knackered. I'm reactive. I don't tolerate stress very well. This is where I find it very difficult to choose non-violent words. This is in no one's best interest. Yeah. However, when we think about, instead of aiming for selflessness, and I'd be interested to hear what you think here. When I'm aiming to be selfless, actually what I'm attempting to do is to be patient, is to be available, to be loving. What else would you add to that, Lisbeth?
Yeah, all of those things, and just to be kind and to be
Yes.
thoughtful.
Yes, exactly. We want to be present and loving and to be this safe place. So the question is, instead of aiming for selflessness, let's aim for these things. But the question is, what do you require to be that version of self? Yeah? We need to be resourced. So that's what I want everyone to think about. Instead of just thinking about, what do I need to do? What's required of me? Yeah? I want you to think, what do I need to be able to do what's required of me? Yeah. It's like the way that we treat ourselves, the metaphor that I think brings this really home. It would be like saying to your car, you got to get me to point Z, right? And I'll fill you up once you're there. Like, it's just a nonsense. We know that if we want the car to take us to point Z, we're going to have to top up the tank because it's not going to go without fuel. We are no different. Mobile phones are no different. Like, how we recharge our phones without chastising them for being needy, or weak or selfish. It's how is it that we've come to this place of just expecting ourselves to be this machine with infinite capacity? We treat ourselves with so little respect, and yet we expect ourselves to be everything to all people at all times of the day. We can't do it. So how do we need to be resourced so that we can be these things? And can we see that this is an integral part of mothering? This is an integral part of managing our businesses. It's makes perfect sense, doesn't it?
I was laughing and smiling as you said that, because when you say it and when you hear someone say it, it's so obvious, isn't it? Like, and it's so like, obviously, if you are running on empty, you're not going to be the best version of yourself. But it's such an obvious thing to say, but we, like you said, we find it so challenging. And I think the phone analogy is really great because, like you said, you'd never chastise your phone for running out of battery. You just put it on charge. And I think what you said earlier as well about it's so unique, like there isn't a right way to do it because what everybody needs is different to them, isn't it? And you made me think as you were talking then about when I was pregnant with my eldest, and I remember somebody saying to me, so I used to go, I had a season ticket for the football. I love the football. I went every week. Now, obviously that changed when I had him, because partly because of money, but also because it dictated my weekends and that kind of thing. But I remember when I was pregnant going, oh God, I'm really going to miss the football though. And I was talking about how much I was going to miss it. And my friend saying to me, you won't care about that once he's born. And I was like, what? She's like, oh, when I had mine, I just stopped caring about it. And I remember thinking, I've loved Liverpool Football Club for like 30 years. Why would I just suddenly stop caring about it? But there is this narrative, isn't there? Like right from that point, and I mean, that goes again back to motherhood of like, that won't matter anymore because this thing's more important. Yes. And I remember having the point where I was like, no, it does still matter. And I won't be able to go as much, but actually that's a massive part of my life and my enjoyment and things that I get joy out of. And yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, of just the way that people speak of like, that doesn't matter anymore. And it's like, well, it does, and that's okay. It doesn't mean I love my son less.
No, No, Becky, and I think that really speaks to something really important here. And that is that our joy and our pleasure matter. Yeah, I think we've been raised to believe that, joys are nice to have, but if you chase pleasure, you're somehow a hedonist. That's indulgent. But in actual fact, when we take a look at how we function from the nervous system perspective, pleasure and joy and contentment actually shift us out of the stress response. They bring us into rest and digest mode, which obviously rest and digest mode helps us heal. Yeah, it helps us process our memories. It helps us delay gratification so that we can empathize with others. When we're in rest and digest mode, that's when we can really take better action in service of our values, right? So there's nothing superfluous about our joy. And for anyone that's listening to this thinking, God, there's something I really, really miss. There is a grieving. Yeah. And I think we don't talk about that enough in terms of our parenting journey, that there will be things you adore your child, but there will still be some forms of self-expression that for a time may be unavailable to you. And I think that's important to acknowledge, that to a certain degree in different stages or seasons of motherhood, there is a required, subjugation of our needs. Because, in the middle of the night when your baby's crying, you can't just roll over and say, not now, sweetie, like this doesn't suit me. We've got to leap into action. But actually, as our children grow, I think it is essential that we let them know that we have feelings and needs, because how else will they understand and embrace their own humanity? So our opportunity for self-expression does expand as they get older, and hopefully you'll be able to reclaim football, and maybe this is something that you'll be able to share with your children as they get older. Isn't it lovely to sort of create that legacy?
Yeah, 100%. And it's role modeling that, isn't it? And it's role modeling self-care. And it's funny, actually, because neither of my children like football at all. And me and their dad met at the football. And so we are both football mad. But it's interesting that they've never liked football. And people have said to me, oh, that's a real shame because you could take them to football. And I was like, do you know what? Talking about the selfishly, I quite like that because that's mine.
Like, that's your thing.
It's a thing as well, isn't it? Where we feel like we have to share that joy or share, include the children in it at all times. And actually, we don't.
You don't have
to. It can
Yeah.
be our thing.
It is, and they can have things that are like totally their thing, and it's fine. Like we can celebrate each other's independent interests and still be excited for each other. But you don't have to, we don't have to be cookie cutters, do we?
100%. And I think it's the language we use as well, isn't it? I remember when I was going away with work, this was a few years ago. But my daughter getting really upset. She hates me leaving, and she still hates me leaving, actually, which, is not a bad thing. It's because she likes her mum being there. She's only young. But I remember as I was walking out of the door, I said to her, she was saying she didn't want me to go. And I, was giving her a cuddle and whatever. And I said, no, I don't want to go either. And I stopped myself because I was like, no, I do want to go. And I actually had a conversation with her where I said, I do want to go. This is actually really important for mummy. This is an event that I'm really looking forward to. That's going to be really good for me. I'm going to miss you so much. And like when I get back, it's going to be brilliant. And I think a lot of the narrative that we learn around selfishness, selflessness, self-care, all that kind of stuff comes from the way that we're spoken to as kids as well, isn't it? Like that we have to put others first, or that, all that kind of stuff. So if we can change some of that for our children as well, that's really powerful.
It is. And I would say that the more people I talk to about this book, I think there are generations who definitely need this book. Now, I would suggest that our mothers need to read this book. Any perimenopausal woman would need to read this book. But I'm actually delighted to say that my daughter does not need this book. And I'm like, we're doing something right. Because there'll be circumstances where I'm like, I'm up in arms about how women are perceived. And she's like, but we know that's outdated. We know that's not real. I'm like, great. So it's working. But there are still plenty of us who need to do quite some serious unpicking of these beliefs that really do keep us stuck in self-denial.
Yeah, absolutely. And can you talk a little bit about, so we're talking about some like relatively big stuff at the moment, but one of the things I really love about the book is how many practical things you can do. And it's one of the things I loved about your keynote speech at Nikki's event as well. And you actually had us all up, didn't you, doing a breathing technique or a W? And
yes. Oh, you remember it. That's great. There you go.
I do it. It was brilliant because it was so simple. It's a lot of what I'm about on this podcast is simplifying things. Actually, they're probably those really seemingly little, they're not little things, I don't want to call them little things, but seemingly little and simple things, I think make the most difference, don't they? Because they regulate you. Now I'd love to count how many examples of things that you give in the book, actually, because there's so many of them. And as much as I said I like listening to book, I think I'm going to buy a hard copy so I can just flick through it and look for it, because there's so many wonderful practices in there. And obviously you're not going to do all of them. You'll pick the ones that are sort of right for you.
Yeah.
But could you share maybe, I don't know if you have any favorite ones or ones that seem to go really well with people, and also maybe chat a little bit about how, when I was saying earlier, I was always a little bit skeptical prior to doing a lot of the work on myself about what would be considered as woo or spiritual, and maybe breath work and things like that, because you talk a lot about that. What are your sort of favorite tips from the book that maybe people could go away and try? And if anybody's a little bit skeptical about that, what would you say to them about it?
I love this question, and I'm so glad you've gone here. So you mentioned breath work. Let's start there. Now, I'm curious, for anyone listening, I think it's commonly accepted that when we breathe better, we feel better. Now, that makes perfect sense from a nervous system functioning point of view. Okay, so there's a dual feedback loop between nervous system state and our breathing. And that is, if our breathing is short and sharp and jagged and held, that's a cue to our nervous system that we should be on high alert, that there's some kind of threat. Yeah. But equally, when we're feeling stressed out, it tends to make the breath shorter, sharper, up in the chest. Okay. So using that understanding, we know that when we elongate the exhalation, when we smooth out the breath, that is a cue to the nervous system that it's safe to come off high alert, that we can, be at ease. Okay. So just by manipulating the breath, we can shift ourselves out of the stress response. However, here's the question. Sometimes when we're feeling stressed or anxious and someone says to us, take a deep breath, it can actually agitate us. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying don't work with the breath. I am saying what works better than trying to manipulate your breathing or make it bigger or make it fuller in stillness is moving with the breath so that you're not actually thinking about your breath at all. We also know that movement has a potent antidepressant effect. Also, we know that the way that we hold our bodies in terms of our posture, research shows that that has an impact on our mood and our energy levels too. Specifically, this kind of iPhone slump. Yeah, if you think it's also the winter slump when we're kind of cold and right. That position with the downcast gaze and a round spine, it lowers your mood, it lowers your energy levels, makes it easier to cry, and it makes it easier to recall negative memories. So just changing your posture into a more tall, broad collarbone shape is going to help you literally feel more poised and present and ready to go. So the breathing practice that brings all of that science together in terms of breath, movement, and posture is the good old chicken wing shoulder roll. And it's a stupid name because hopefully that will make you giggle and also you'll never forget it. But the reason why I love this practice is we spend a minute doing it. It's simple, but it's impactful. And it's something that we can all do. So let's get our chicken wings out. So chicken wings, fingertips on shoulders. As you breathe in, lift your elbows up. And as you breathe out, take your elbows back and down. And then just keep going in time with your breath, breathing in, elbows up, and breathing out, elbows down. And you'll feel that as you lift your elbows up, helps you take a deep breath in. And when you drop your elbows down, it helps you more completely empty the lungs. So just by virtue of that arm movement, it's making space for a more complete breath. And 6 of those, and I'm like, do you know what? Yeah, I can do this. I can human again. Yeah, right, off we go. And it makes a difference. A little circuit breaker.
I love that I can human again, because I've been speaking to one of my friends recently and we keep talking about adulting. We were talking earlier about whether it was an actual term, but actually just that human again is really powerful. I really like that as a term.
Yep. I'm with you. Adulting, humaning can be very hard.
Yeah. And as you were talking just then, and I did a couple of those, even just moving stretching your arms at the same time is, it brings you out of that slump that you've been sat in without realizing.
Brings us back into connection with self. We cannot advocate for self unless we're connected with self. Yeah. And so many of us, we're distracted by pinging notifications and there's that person's needs and there's this. We don't even know what's going on here. So these practices that bring us back into the body, they make us aware of, I haven't got out of my chair for the last hour, or I haven't had a drink of water for the last couple of hours. I haven't seen sunlight, simple. I haven't been to the loo. All of these things that everything else is deemed as so much more important than these fundamental human needs. Come home to self. Nothing selfish about it. This is how we live life on purpose.
Yeah, I really love all of that. I'd also love to know one of the things that I do. I'm not sure if this is going to be a thing that actual psychologists recommend to do, but I find really powerful. And I was saying earlier that I can feel when I get really anxious and I can feel it boiling up as sort of rage and that kind of thing. And I remember when the second lockdown was announced. So what was we in then? 2021. And I was filled with rage for many different reasons about that second lockdown being announced.
Yeah.
Me and my husband had an argument that morning about it. And, the kids were at home. We were all stuck inside. And I went out for a walk. It was pouring with rain. So no one else was really about, but I just needed to get out the house. And I found myself at the beach. And I was standing, not in any kind of dangerous way, but I was on a cliff edge, like just looking out to sea, which was, I love the sea. It's my happy place anyway. That's why I'd gone down there to try and get a bit of sea air and feel better. But no one else was around because it was pouring with rain. And I just screamed as loud as I could into the void effectively because it was going out to the ocean.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, that felt incredible. And I'd done it like another couple of times. I think I actually weirdly learned it on Grey's Anatomy because I think they do it at a point in Grey's Anatomy. But I went back home like a brand new person. And my husband was a bit like, are you all right? Literally, like it was about 20 minutes later. And I've now I do it sometimes with the children, not so much as they've got older actually, but when I'm starting to get worked up, I'll say to them, right, we all need to shake it out. And we sort of shake down low, shake up high, and then scream. Because
Becky, that's great.
Oh, well, I was going to say,
Yeah.
When I say that to people, I'm like, yeah, I just stood on the edge of a cliff and screamed. But it was because it was almost like I needed to get that rage out of me and not aimed at anybody else. And I wondered whether that was an actual, like I said, I think I learned it from Grey's Anatomy.
It's legit. It is legit. Like when you think about emotions, they have a charge, an energetic charge. So whether you hold back a tear or whether you stifle an expression of anger, it doesn't just dissipate. It's held. So then it needs to go somewhere. And I think that's a fantastic mechanism where using sound, using vibration, humming, using the breath, using movement. If you can't just break out into a random scream, you could do lion breath, for example. Now, I would urge every parent to share this with your children because this is a way of expressing anger without doing harm. It looks and sounds like this. You breathe in through your nose, you exhale through your mouth with the tongue extended as far out as possible. Yeah, a real cathartic roar. Now that one you could, you might need to take yourself off to a meeting room, but no one's going to come bursting in going, what the hell's going on, right? Lion breath is a really fantastic way of moving through our feelings.
I am definitely teaching that, especially to my daughter, both my kids, but especially to my daughter. And I'm going to clip this bit of it, I think, and show it to her because I talk about breathing with them quite a lot when they're working through things. And I was actually yesterday talking to her about really letting her breath out. So I was like, I want you to breathe in and then really blow out. But she wouldn't do it because it's such a sort of unnatural thing to do, isn't it? And I'm going to say, look, there's a psychologist. It's not just me. I'm not just making you do this weird thing.
Okay, Becky, I've got a little tip here. Okay, so you could do hot chocolate breath. So have her cupping her beautiful mug of hot chocolate and really cue her to notice how nice it feels, the warmth on her hands, of the cup. Then you breathe in through the nose and then you exhale through pursed lips as if you're cooling, cooling that cup of hot chocolate. So it looks and sounds like this. Now that is going to help your daughter exhale. And it's so important. That long exhale really does soothe the nervous system.
Amazing.
So I love that one.
And like I said, I wholeheartedly, and that's not necessarily why I invited you onto the podcast, but wholeheartedly recommend everybody listen to or buy your book because it's filled with so many of these things, isn't it? I was doing one the other day where it was on the chapter that you were talking about. I can't even remember why now, but I just quite like doing it where it was like roll your tongue around your teeth.
Oh, yes. No, that's good for anxiety. Good for panic.
That's it.
Yep.
Yeah.
All you're doing is just circling your tongue around the top row of teeth 10 times one way, 10 times the other way. And for anyone that's trying it right now, what I'm hoping you'll experience is it increases the production of saliva. When your nervous system detects an increased production of saliva, it's a cue that it's safe to come off high alert. So it shifts us into rest and digest. So this is something that you can do when you're on your commute. You could do it in the meeting room before it is that you're about to have to speak up about something nerve-wracking, because this is just a part of life. Yeah, it's totally normal for us to have these peaks of anxiety. We just need strategies to help support us in these moments.
Yeah, and real simple things that you can do. I did it whilst I was going around Audi. I was listening to the book whilst I was shopping.
Yeah.
And then I am going to have to stop because people are looking at me like my tongue's rolling around my mouth. It is. That's what I love. One of the things I really love about the book is there's so many simple, practical takeaways that will suit anybody. You know, some things you won't like and some things you will, but there will be things to find. And I am really conscious of the time. And honestly, I said to you before we started recording, and this is the case every time, I could talk to you all day long, but I appreciate we cannot do that. With the book, I don't know if I'm putting you on the spot a bit here of remembering them. What's 7 steps, isn't there, to the how to be selfish? And they are all reclaiming a different step. Not necessarily to talk about because people can go away and listen to or buy the book, but can you tell us what the steps are, just to give people an idea? And then I'm going to share something about one of the steps with you that made me laugh as I was listening to it.
Oh, I'm excited to hear. Okay, so just to preface this conversation about the steps, they are designed to be read in order because there is a scaffolding of skills. And you will find that step 7 is quite challenging if you haven't got under your belt some of the earlier steps. It's still worth reading. You know, you can skip ahead, you can keep reading. It's not like you can only move on to step 2 once you've nailed step 1. Like, we've got the rest of our lives to fine tune this stuff. Step 1 is I reclaim my mind. And what's important here is just getting our self-talk on side and not worrying about our thoughts, because we don't choose our thoughts. They happen to us. So it's all right to stop trying to control your thoughts because you can't. So reclaim my mind. Step 2 is I reclaim my senses. I reclaim my attention. And that's really important because if we want to be able to regulate our nervous system, we do that via the senses. So this is really putting us back in the driver's seat as to where we direct our attention. Step 3 is I take back my body. And that was probably my favorite chapter to write. And that is fundamental to nervous system regulation. And then step 4, which you've already mentioned, I reclaim my right to feel. This is about emotional health. Step 5, I take back my moral compass. So this is where we get clear on our values. Step 6, I prioritize myself. This is our boundaries with self, our promises to self. And clearly we need to be able to set that into motion before step 7, which is I advocate for myself and I articulate my boundaries with other people. So it is a roadmap to feeling safe and confident, to prioritizing ourselves and advocating for ourselves so that we can receive from others.
And I think it's like you said, I like what you said around the scaffolding and listen to it. And it's not, because I said to you before we started recording, didn't I? And you were like, wow, you've really powered through that when there's a lot to take in. But what I wanted to do was listen to the whole book and then go back to the ones that I really sort of need to work on. So particularly around, and this was the one that I was going to share with you about, like the reclaim my attention was one for me, because the thing that I was going to share with you was I had to restart that chapter 4 times because I'm not listening. I started doing something else, or I was cooking the kids' tea, or I was shopping in Aldi, like I said when I was listening to that one the other day. And then I finally came to peace with the fact. I was like, no, I've just listen through, and you're not going to listen to all of it, but then find a time to actually sit and listen to it. But so much of what you said in that particularly resonated with me because I'm terrible for multitasking or, doing all this stuff. So what I also love about it is that you can just listen to it all and then pick out the bits, like I said, that you most like. If you are, like I said, I started this journey without realizing that's what it was necessarily quite a long time ago. But listening to the book, I'm like, oh yeah, but some of that would just really help me regulate that. Like, I'm sort of at peace with that being an okay thing to do, but I don't quite know how to do it. So but the reclaim my attention really made me laugh because on the 4th time of restarting I was like, you just need to do one thing at a time.
And sometimes we also need to make peace with this is modern life. We're likely to be folding the washing at the same time as listening to an audiobook because this is the window of time that we have it. And it's like, I encourage people, like, don't attempt to make this perfect and tied up with a little bow. Like, this is all approximations. This is practice. This is like whatever you can do, however you can listen to it or read it or action it. Any step in the right direction is progress. Yeah. And just be gentle with yourself because our attention is tugged at left, right, and center. We're there's so much demanded of us. Yeah. Please don't let failure to progress or failure to finish this be another stick that we beat ourselves with. Yeah. I want tenderness to be the most important thing. Just be tender with self, gentle with yourself.
Amazing. And I feel like that's such a beautiful place to sort of draw the conversation to an end. Is there anything else you would like to share at all before we finish recording? And where can people find you and connect with you and find out more about all the other books that you've written as well? Because there's, like you said, there's lots of them.
Okay. So I would love for my parting message to be, if anyone feels like they're not worthy of these tender moments, please don't wait to feel deserving before you do it. Okay. Because actually the feeling of worth comes from receiving the tenderness. So do it even if you don't feel like it's okay. Do it even if you don't feel deserving. It will come. It will come from the meeting of your needs, from the validation of your feelings. And all of these practices that we've talked about, they're all accessible. So I promise you the feeling of worth will come from just having a little play with these things. And if anyone's curious, you can find a link in my bio to loads of different stockists for how to be selfish. And there's also Amazon links to the previous 9 that I'm really hoping that once we've removed the barriers, having read How to Be Selfish, then you'll be able to go back and read the one on self-care for tough times, which is a roadmap for grief, for stress, loss, and change. You could go back to Sit to Get Fit if you want to get more movement into your day. You could go back to Rest and Reset if you want to get sleep and relaxation on the radar. You can go back to Stand Tall Like a Mountain if you're looking at how you can share these practices with your family. So I'm hoping it's going to unleash some magic so that we can all feel loved and cared for.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And I will include all of the links in the show notes to your Instagram and your various different places as well, that people can come and connect with you and chat with you if they want to. Thank you so much for your time today. Honestly, I think people are going to take so much from it. And I just really appreciate the conversation. It's been really lovely.
Thank you, Becky. It's a joy to talk about these. And do you know what? When writing a book, it's such a vulnerable process. And you've made my day just hearing how different things have landed for you and how you're integrating with it. So thank you, darling. That's such a beautiful gift to me. There's an exchange here, right? And we both win. Yeah. Isn't it gorgeous? This is self-advocacy in action. Yeah.
I really love that. Yeah, that's just filled my heart with joy. That's such a nice way to end the conversation. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Becky.
Thank you so much for tuning in. I am truly grateful for your time and energy today. I know you've got a million things on your plate, and the fact that you are here investing your time into something that will help yourself, your business, and your socials grow is something I am really proud of you for. Before you go though, if you love this podcast and you're a woman running a small business who wants to make social media easier and business life less lonely, I've got something for you. The Boss Your Socials Club is here to bring you inspiration, accountability, confidence, and community. It's a place where we ban the word should because we believe in bespoke advice that will work for you, your stage of life, and your business. As a member, you'll get a clear content plan every month, ready-to-use templates, and the accountability to actually show up. Plus, you'll have expert support and a community of incredible women who get it and who want to cheer you on and support you in your business journey. Think of it like having a teeny tiny social media marketing expert in your pocket, giving you the knowledge and the assurance when it comes to posting great, engaging content on your social media platforms and showing up in a way that grows your business without the overwhelm. Whether you're just getting started or looking to take your social media to the next level, Boss Your Socials Club has everything you need. You can join from just £14 a month or save with an annual membership. The link is in the show notes. Thank you again for being here today, and I can't wait to catch you in the next episode. Until then, take care and keep showing up.